Hey everyone, and welcome back to Whizbits Random Gaming and this week's Whizbits Random Topics. So in a kind of a follow-up video to last week's Whizbits Random Topics, where I discussed games I don't like, games and genres essentially that I just don't get on with, all fairly popular ones as well. It's just obviously I'm different. Well, we all like what we like. Today's video is going to be about genres, games that I love, games that I grew up on, genres that I have pretty much stayed with throughout the duration of my whole gaming history. So yeah, we touched on last week certain games that I don't like. So we went into RPGs, puzzle games, point and click, strategy games, racing games. Those are the kind of games that I don't really play that often, if I am totally honest. And we're going to flip the switch here today and we're going to talk about ones that I love. Now, first and foremost, I think my favourite genre of video game is 2D beat-em-ups. They always have been. I am an arcade kid, grew up in the arcades in the 80s, in the video shops, in the chip shops in the 90s, pumping my lunch money into those machines that I shouldn't have been doing, eating a couple of bags of Space Raiders as I used to run back to school because that's all I had enough money left for once we finished playing the games. And it was always an exciting time when we found a brand new beat 'em up in the arcade. You know, from Bad Dudes, Dragon Ninja, which we all loved, Double Dragon, which we absolutely destroyed that game once we knew the old elbow technique. We was finishing that game on 10 pence, because it was 10 pence back in those days for a single credit. There was just so many. There was a whole plethora of beat 'em ups in the late 80s, early 90s. It was really hard to keep up with the games that come out, but you know what, even the bad ones we'd give a go, you know, and there was a lot of bad ones as well. But yeah, the genre itself, for me, it was a genre that kept giving and giving. I know they're repetitive games, they're quite boring in a lot of people's eyes, but I found them the perfect game just to switch off and just have a good old button mash and just literally forget about anything else that's going on. So once I found out that games were being ported over to whatever system I was playing at the time, I'd be like, I need to buy that. More often than not, they were rather disappointing, shall we say, if we look at some of the 8-bit conversions that landed up on our 8-bit micros. So yeah, beat 'em ups didn't translate too well, in all honesty, over to those systems, but they did translate pretty well over to the 8-bits and more so the 16 bits. And there was a lot of great games that came out just on consoles as well that was beat 'em ups. But for me, the game changed massively when Final Fight came out. I can remember now the video shop that we went to. It was at the top of one of my roads. It was the road that my parents, or my mum actually, grew up in that particular area, and we was in a video shop there, and we walked in and we saw Final Fight for the first time ever. And we've been playing other games, but Final Fight just blew it out of the water. Everything that we've been playing up until that point, the graphics, the sprites, the colours, everything about it, it was just, in my opinion anyway, so far ahead of pretty much anything that we'd seen at the time. We spent a lot of money on that game. We never finished it in the arcade. We didn't have enough money for that. So when I say we spent a lot of money, it wasn't enough. But we definitely saw enough of the game. I think the furthest I ever got on that game when I was playing it, when it was a new arcade game anyway, was Eddie, the police officer. I think that's the furthest we ever got, and we was absolutely gobsmacked. And you know, because normally we can only get to the wrestling ring part. If you've played that game, you'll know it when you play when you fight Sodom as the boss. You know, getting to that part was a bit of an achievement back then in our eyes. And when we got to Eddie, I don't think we beat him. You know, we thought we was going to go on to complete the game. We thought we were close. We were very, very wrong. We would have needed probably another £10 to get to the end of the game, in all honesty. But yeah, so beat 'em ups for me, got to be my favourite genre. It really has to be. It's just, if a beat 'em up comes out now, I'm giving it my attention. And I'm really glad we had the resurgence of 2D beat 'em ups over the last, maybe 5 to 10 years. Scott Pilgrim was a great one, wasn't it? And it was only available digitally for quite a long time, and a lot of people kept their Xbox 360s and just kept it on that hard drive, didn't they? Because that's the only way you could play it. I know I did. I've got it digitally now on a variety of systems, and I've also got the physical version on the Switch. But then we had a little bit of a lull, and then it came back, and then I think with the success of Streets of Rage 4, which is a fantastic game, I was quite dubious at the time when I saw the art style, the stills, but when I actually saw it in motion and watched it on the trailer, etc., I started to become a believer, most definitely in that game. And we've had great games churning out ever since. There's a lot of average ones as well, but I'll be honest, I'm a sucker for that genre. Even the poor ones, you know. I pre-ordered The Phantom the other day from Limited Run Games. Now, admittedly, I cancelled the order because that one looks to be a step too far. It looks trash. The reviews have come in and they're trash as well. So I think I dodged a bullet with that one. But it's a 2D beat 'em up. I was like, I'm going to buy it. Night Stalkers, I'm glad I didn't buy the physical version of that. It's another one that's not very good, but I picked it up for like £3 or £4. A remake of a not so popular game, and yeah, not a great job. And I think the one that was a little bit annoying to me, that was a little bit poor, that I played all the way through quite recently, was the Karate Kid game. Nice graphics, you know, quite cute in the style of the Turtles games and the Scott Pilgrim games. You can see where it's got its inspiration from. However, poorly executed, in all honesty. The hit detection is pretty poor. It gets a bit boring as well, and that's saying something for a beat 'em up, because, you know, they are designed to be quite repetitive. But there's been really good ones as well, you know. Mayhem Brawler. If you haven't played Mayhem Brawler, I highly recommend it. Get out and check that game out. It's really, really good. It came out, and it was quite rough when it came out, but it had a lot of work done to it, and all the patchwork that's been done has made that a really formidable title in the beat 'em up genre. The Turtles games, Shredder's Revenge, what an absolute blast that game has been. The DLC as well. I think the beat 'em up scene, the beat 'em up genre, is probably as healthy as it's ever been, and I, for one, am so happy about that. Got to give a shout out to Final Vendetta as well. A pretty cheap game if you go out and look for it. For me, it's probably one of the best games that I've played in a long time. Very underrated. It kind of got lost in the mix when Streets of Rage 4 came out. And just to settle the argument, Streets of Rage 2 or Final Fight. Now, I know a lot of people are going to hate on this, but Final Fight every time. No argument from me. So other genres that I like arcade action. So platforming, hacking and slashing type games. And I think the best example I can give of such a game is Rastan. Rastan has been one of my favourite games ever, but it's also been one of my gaming frustrations. I've still not finished it. Check out link below. There's going to be an episode of Unfinished Business. It was the first one I did where I attempt to finish games from my childhood that I just, for whatever reason, couldn't. Yeah, I've kind of given you a bit of a spoiler. I didn't finish it, but I think the video itself is pretty entertaining in how I came to that conclusion. I love games like that, you know, so What else can we put into that bracket? Can we say Shinobi as well? Those kind of arcade games. We've got those platforming elements as well as either throwing projectiles or you're hitting with swords, that kind of thing. Golden Axe. Now people class Golden Axe as a beat 'em up, and I guess it kind of is, but I don't know, I kind of put it in the midway bracket. It's kind of, it has all those beat 'em up elements, but it also has got elements of other sort of Sega games like your Shinobis and stuff like that, with a small bit of platforming. But yeah, those kind of arcade hack and slash games, you know, I absolutely love them. And for me, I recently played through for the first time because I've always struggled to emulate this game whenever I've tried. Rastan 3, what a game. It's like Rastan 1 on pets, you know. It's absolutely ridiculous. Golden Axe is just, I'm not going to say it's a poor game compared to it, but it is Golden Axe just amplified and whacked all the way up. Really great game. You can buy it on the Taito Collection number 3, I think it is. It's out now. A lot of great games on there. It's got the whole Rastan saga, and it's also available digitally as well if you just want to buy that particular game for around about £5 or £6, and that's on the PlayStation Store, the Nintendo eShop. I'm not sure about the Xbox shop. I've not actually seen, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's there as well. So that's one genre I absolutely love. Got to give shout to Shadow Dancer. What a game that was. Absolutely love playing through that game. One of the more difficult games, and I've only ever completed that in the arcade at home. It was never going to happen at home. So yeah, another genre I love, the hack and slash type platforming games that are not quite fighting games. They've got those fighting sort of elements to them. So platformers as well. I do love a platformer. First platforming memories have got to be back on my Amstrad, Manic Miner, Jet Set Willy, those sort of games. I love those games. I had no idea really what I was doing on them, but I love the whole platforming elements, and that's kind of what introduced me anyway to platforming video games. Now obviously those were very primitive compared to what we see today, and my little mind at the time was absolutely blown away when I was seeing videos of Super Mario Brothers all over the place, and for that matter as well, Alex Kidd on the Master System. When we were seeing games like that, it really showed just how far that genre had progressed from the days of Manic Miner. It really did. And I'm not knocking the Manic Miner games. I thought they were brilliant. And they're definitely a gateway for someone like myself to get into the other stuff. Now, on the Micros, we kind of had our own version of Super Mario Brothers, which didn't actually stay out for very long, and that was the Great Giana Sisters. Quite a rare game now. It came out for, I can't remember exactly how long, but it was probably a matter of months, but it was an absolute rip-off of the Super Mario Brothers game, the original that was on the Nintendo NES. But I've played it since. I never managed to pick up a copy. I remember seeing it as a kid in like my local market game store, and it was kind of like whatever. But then like I started seeing a little bit of controversy about it, and what the whole big deal about the game was. But not just that, the reviews were actually pretty good as well. So all of a sudden, now I'm interested. I went to buy it, but by that time it had either even sold out because of all the hype, and there was hype behind it at the time, or it had got pulled from the shelves. Nintendo were not happy. They did not like what Great Giana Sisters actually was. Now the franchise has lived on, and you can still pick up Great Giana Sisters games, and they're not bad actually. There's some pretty good ones out there. The most recent one's probably about 10 years old now, and it's not a bad game in all honesty. They've definitely had to distance themselves from the whole Super Mario thing, because I think Nintendo will probably be on them. But yeah, platform games, 2D platform games, you know, there was no shortage of them, was there? Once we got to we left the micro systems and hit consoles. And there's a lot of trash out there, but some great ones. Let's talk about things like DuckTales, Chip and Dale, the Mega Man games. And the Master System had some really good ones as well, you know. The Alex Kidd games, Alex Kidd in Shinobi World, what a game that was. The Wonder Boy games. Now I know they turn a little bit more RPG as we progress from the original Wonder Boy, but what about Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap? Brilliant game. Not the most, it's not the most fast action-paced platformer, but it's a platformer, nevertheless. Now, my love for platformers has obviously carried on ever since. Didn't get tired of them throughout the 16-bit era. I don't think anyone really did. If you like platforming games, you're always going to like that element of gaming. And once we got to the 3D stage and the N64 games were started coming out, and then we had Mario 64. Game changer. Absolute game changer. It really was. A fantastic game from a different perspective, but one that a lot of other companies saw the success of, tried to replicate, and in all honesty, a lot of them failed. There's a lot of really good games out there, 3D based platform games that just didn't quite cut it because of the terrible camera angles. Developers were still trying to work out how to use these camera angles, and there was a lot of games out there that, you know, they became not just known for their bad camera angles, but there was very much collectathons. I like a game where you play a number of levels and you might come to a boss. It kind of gives me an objective that I know what I'm doing, and this is just my personal perspective. And these games are just collectathons, collect the keys, collect the jewels, with no bosses and stuff like that. And for me, it didn't quite compute. I didn't get that. I was like, where's the boss? I've been playing games with bosses at the end of the levels all my life, and I didn't quite understand it. I was like, this is terrible. There's just no, there's no structure to this, and I do like the structure element. The N64 for me, not one of my favourite consoles. It came out with a bang, but a lot of games, and the PlayStation 1 and the Saturn, that kind of era, a lot of those games have aged really badly, especially control wise, but we still got through them. I'll give you an example. Croc on the PlayStation 1, terrible camera, but I love that game. I played all the way through it. It was really, really good, and I'm really looking forward to the remastered version that I believe is going to be coming out for pre-order any day soon now. So I'm quite looking forward to picking that one up and playing it, hopefully with a better camera angle. Platformers still going strong today, obviously. Are they as prevalent as they was back then? No, because video games have progressed. There's a lot more genres, there's a lot more scope, there's a lot more things that developers can do with video games now. So platformers are obviously, you know, they're not the go-to idea anymore. There was only a handful of ideas or genres back then that developers were using, really. You know, okay, maybe more than a handful, but things have developed so much now, and developers have got so many different options, so many different alternatives on how to make video games and what kind of video games they can make. It, you know, platformers are not the go-to anymore. They're not like, right, what are we doing? A beat 'em up, a racing game, you know, a point and click, a strategy game, an RPG, a platformer. Boom, the world is their oyster these days in what developers can do, but there's still a lot out there. One that I'm currently playing at the moment is Gimmick 2. I'm absolutely loving it. It's on the PlayStation 5 and the Switch, and thankfully, if anyone here has played Mr. Gimmick, which is the original game that came out on the NES, this one, whilst difficult, is a lot easier and a lot more forgiving, that original game. So I'm really enjoying playing through that one. Now, if you see Gimmick 2 at a price that you're happy with and you like platformers, I highly recommend you pick that one up. So what are the future for platform games? Well, I think we need to look at Nintendo for that. Nintendo really are the go-to company for that. We've got the Switch 2 coming up soon. I'm hearing, and who knows, because no one really knows anything about the Switch 2 other than what was leaked, and Nintendo just said, "All right, that's enough. Here you go. You can have your release or your preview because you lot are leaking everything." I've not heard anything since, but I'm sure that there's going to be some kind of Mario game on release day. It's probably going to be Mario Kart, but there are strong rumours out there as well that there's going to be another 3D Mario upon release. I can't see it being a 2D one. We haven't had Super Mario Wonder out for that long, so I can't see another one so soon after that, when Wonder is probably still doing really good sales. It's a Mario game. It will sell pretty much forever. And Wonder's a really good game, actually. Really happy with that. One of the easier Mario games, but I didn't mind that. It just meant that someone at my stage of life, at my age, I could play it, get through it, and move on to the next game. I didn't want to be stuck playing it for weeks and weeks and weeks, thinking about, I just want to get to the end. I think I've done it in about a week, and that was relatively playing it a couple of hours a night, maybe something like that. And yeah, really good game, and for me, a really good entry to the Mario series. So we've gone through beat 'em ups so far. We have gone through platformers. We've gone through hack and slash type games. One-on-one fighters. Now this stems from my generation and the Street Fighter 2 generation. Everyone in my school, everyone in anyone's school at that point in 1992 onwards, we was all playing Street Fighter 2. Even people that weren't into video games were coming out to the arcades playing Street Fighter 2. Now I became such a fan of the concept of the one-on-one at the time that I was hungry for more, and whereas a lot of my friends wouldn't touch a lot of the they used to call them the rip-off games and stuff like that, and they were rip-offs, but a lot of them was quality as well. They was all based on that concept that we all know and love with Street Fighter 2. But games like Fatal Fury, which was actually in development before Street Fighter 2, and yeah, Street Fighter 2 just came out and stole any thunder that game might have possibly had. But Fatal Fury came out, and I loved that game. I really did. I thought the characters were great, and it has its flaws, but obviously SNK went on to fix all of those flaws as they went through the Fatal Fury series. It was successful enough, probably because of people like myself that wanted more one-on-one fighting games. Not necessarily Street Fighter. We was open-minded enough to play something different. There was a lot of people out there at the time that just wasn't open-minded enough. They was Street Fighter 2 or nothing. And SNK obviously smashed it when it comes to the one-on-one fighting stuff. They was just releasing absolute tons of stuff. World Heroes, brilliant game at the time. I remember really enjoying that one. And around about when Street Fighter 3 came out, I kind of stopped gaming for a period of time. I was more into my music at the time, and I kind of had a period away. It kind of tied in as well with the 3D fighters that was coming out. I remember playing games like Battle Arena, Toshinden, and really enjoying that actually. Excuse me, for how slow it was and that, but it was kind of just, it was a new thing in '94 when we got the PlayStation. Tekken 1, I really enjoyed Tekken 1, although I really struggled with the concept that there was no projectiles, no fireballs, anything like that, no spinning bird kicks. But once I got past that and realised that there was a lot of depth to that sort of game, you understood it was a really good game. Virtual Fighter was the same, although I saw Virtual Fighter as a bit more of, what's the word I'm looking for here? I would say it was a bit more of an attraction. If you went into an arcade when that first came out, oh boy, did that stand out. It really did. If you were sitting there playing your 2D beat 'em ups and then all of a sudden you're looking at Virtual Fighter in the corner over there, it was just it drew you to it. You had to go and play that game. So yeah, I had a big period away. I was playing games briefly, Marvel versus Capcom when it come out and stuff like that. And in that time, one-on-one fighting games had progressed so much that my old man traits, when I come to playing fighting games, I do pretty much the same thing. It's force of habit whenever I play a fighting game with whatever I'm trying to do. I'll try and find a character that does the Fireball Dragon Punch combo, anything like that, because it's my old man habits. But they've progressed so much now. There's so much more depth to them. You know, look at these combinations that you can do now. I can't do these for love nor money. And I was pretty good at Street Fighter, I used to think. I used to hold my own down at the Trocadero in London. Shout out to anyone that used to go down there and play Street Fighter in the 90s. I used to go down there and hold my own against people and done okay. But today, wow. Players out there are on another level. I go online, and again, I don't do too bad. It's not like I lose every fight, but when I come up against someone that really knows their stuff, yeah, I get put in my place straight away. So yeah, one-on-one fighters, I love them. I'm not that good at them anymore. I'm really not compared to today's gamers anyway. Wrestling video games. I like wrestling video games. I think the first one that I really enjoyed as a child was probably WWF WrestleMania Challenge. In hindsight, it's a terrible game, but it gave kids the opportunity to actually, you know, have a Survivor Series match. Fight Rick Rude and the Warrior and stuff like that, and there wasn't many other options out there at the time. I played that game so much as a child, to the point where I would still put that on today, and I would still get some enjoyment out of that game. But then it went on, Tecmo World Wrestling. What a fantastic game that is. Groundbreaking, if you ask me, in the terms of wrestling games. Now obviously it's got no licensed wrestlers or anything like that in it, but it came up with so much other different stuff at the time. You know, it had sort of commentary at the bottom, it had a boss fight at the end. It was a little bit unique, great move sets as well, a great soundtrack. There was a lot of love and care that was put into Tecmo World Wrestling. Pro wrestling on the Master System. I think I've got it up there somewhere with my Master System games. I keep that one out on display just for nostalgia purposes. A really fun game, and it was my first experience. It was my first experience of playing a wrestling game on a console, and it was quite limited. With the limitations that game had, we really we made the most of it, shall we say. And it was a really fun game. Now, I've mentioned earlier I had a little bit of a break from gaming at a certain point, and this was at a point when all the N64 wrestling games came out, so I kind of missed the prime of those games when they was out. You know, the WCW games as well, the No Mercies and all those stuff. But I have since played them, and they're really good games. I did miss out on the prime of them, so I didn't play them and smash the living hell out of them for hours and hours like I would have done if I'd have had those games in the comfort of my own bedroom as a teenager. I think what got me back into wrestling games, you know, after playing so many arcade-based ones, like Wrestle War. What a great game that Wrestle War was. Absolutely destroyed your fingers, but I really enjoyed Wrestle War. There's some bad ones out there as well. The Main Event from, I think that was Konami. That was pretty poor in the arcade. Absolutely ripped off as many wrestling characters as possible. But I loved it as a kid. Whenever I used to go to whatever seaside resort I was at, I'd always pump my money into the Main Event, button bash away, and just hope for the best. You had WWF Superstars, brilliant game. Basically, it was like Double Dragon sprites, but with WWF characters. And then they went on to top it off with WrestleFest, probably the best, in my opinion, wrestling game of all time. I'll never get bored of WrestleFest. You can fire it up and just play whatever you want. The tag team mode, you can fire it up and just play the Royal Rumble mode, and yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic experience. Beautiful to look at, and it's a real shame that we can't get a new version of that anytime soon. I know there was an ill-fated attempt with modern day characters probably about 10 years or so ago. I never played it, but it looked absolutely terrible. It reviewed terrible, so I had very little interest in it. But anyway, off of that tangent, the game that kind of got me back into really playing wrestling games on the PlayStation 1 was SmackDown 1. Just for the whole fun multiplayer mode on that. We used to sit around my friends and we used to play the Royal Rumble. And yeah, it was a lot of us that weren't wrestling fans, you know, that used to sit there and play these games. And they would just get into it as well, because you could absolutely slap the living hell out of each other. And you could hit a 4 or 5 combo slap and just knock someone out of the ring. I think Vince McMahon was quite notorious for it, and a lot of my friends used to pick him because you didn't do no wrestling moves with Vince. You just literally slapped the competition out of the ring and they got a kick out of it. Obviously the SmackDown games, they went on and progressed. Got SmackDown 2, which was just a better version of SmackDown 1. And then obviously it went on and on the PlayStation 2. And I think they peaked probably with the one with Brock Lesnar on the cover, Here Comes the Pain. But yeah, I love a wrestling game. Now, I have to give a massive shout out to Fire Pro Wrestling. I know people live and die by that game, but I've never been any good at it. I really haven't. I really want to. I don't know if I've got enough time left in my life cycle to actually get good at that game. But I do plan on picking up the PlayStation 2 one at some point and maybe putting some hours into that. I've got the PlayStation 4 version somewhere. Maybe I'll go into that one, but I know it's a total different philosophy to what I'm used to in terms of playing video games, and for that reason I've always struggled to get to grips with it. But I know if I put my mind to it, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had within those games. We've also got shmups as well. Now shmups might be my favourite genre, in all honesty, thinking about it. I know I went back and I said beat 'em ups at the beginning of the video. It's a real close call when it comes to shmups. From your classics back in the day, from your Gradius, Vulcan Venture, you know, those sort of games, to everything that came out on consoles like the Saturn. Saturn probably has got one of the best shmup libraries of all time. And the good thing about the Nintendo Switch, a lot of these games have been re-released on the Switch physically as well and digitally. So, you know, the Switch is probably the way to go if you're a shmup person. Shmups, I've got a lot better at them as I've got older, which is weird considering reflexes and eyesight deteriorate as you get older. But I think it's more so how I've learned to play them as I've got older, a lot more. For me, it was always a little bit overwhelming, but I was still having a lot of fun. I learned to pace myself and where to concentrate and what to concentrate on within those sort of games, so that I could progress further. If you haven't played that many shmups and you're looking to get into them, I highly recommend one way that's a really good entry-level way to get into shmups and some of the more expensive games that are on individual consoles is the Evercade. Towerplan, there's a lot of Towerplan collections. I think there's 4 Towerplan collections on the Evercade, and there's some real heavy hitters from that company within that genre, and a lot of them have been released on the Evercade. So it's a real good solid way to get into shmups if that's not maybe your thing, but it's something you're interested in. Most people, if it's their thing, they're probably already going to have these games one way or another. But yeah, if you've got fond memories of that sort of era as well, there's a lot of these games. I'll give you an example. Truxton, great game, very difficult game, but a very expensive game as well. Truxton 2. Now you can get both of these games on the Toaplan collections, and they're only around about $17.99. They're also filled with loads of other shooters and other great games from Toaplan. So yeah, that's really it. There's obviously other sort of genres and things that I like, but that's kind of the games that resonate to me immediately, you know. So yeah, the wrestling games, a lot of people might put it in there as a beat 'em up. I kind of find that that's a bit of a subgenre from the beat 'em ups. I find it a completely different genre, in all honesty, but I can see why some people might ram it in there with the beat 'em ups. But no, I personally gonna keep that as a separate genre. So yeah, that's the kind of games that I like. Am I becoming more open-minded as I get older and I play more video games? Yes I am. I'm more than willing to try most things. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to like it, but I'll always hold love for those kind of video games closest to my heart. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, please take the time to consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that like button. It only takes a second of your time. It's really helpful, and it helps my videos get seen by a much wider audience, whilst us small creators out there are fighting against that YouTube algorithm, the beast that it is. Anyway guys, once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.